Explanations for difficult word source. HowToStudentKorean.com. Introduction. This lesson is focused entirely on difficult vocabulary, where I will teach you about some words that need to be explained before we can move on to more complex grammar. Specifically, you will learn how to use
자기 자신, 훨씬, 관하다 관련하다, 주의, 일단, 전혀 별로,
words dealing with weight, and words ending in.
거리다,
Let's get started. Below is the list of words I want to introduce.
흔들다,
To shake.
흔들거리다,
To be shaking.
머뭇거리다,
To hesitate.
반짝거리다,
To be shiny.
두리번거리다,
To look around.
끈적거리다,
To be sticky.
출렁거리다,
To be sloshing. To be rocking.
자기,
Him or her.
자신 이퀄 아너 셀프 아직 이퀄,
Still. Yet.
여전히, 스틸 별로,
Not very.
전혀,
Not at all.
훨씬,
Much more.
관하다,
Related to. Regarding.
관련하다,
Related to. Regarding.
주위,
Around the circumference.
일단 이퀄 원스 무게 이퀄 웨이트 몸무게 이퀄,
Body weight.
살,
Flesh. Weight.
찌다,
To gain weight.
빠지다,
To lose weight. Let's look at each word or groups of words, individually. Tilde.
거리다,
You will sometimes see.
거리다,
At the end of words. For example.
흔들거리다,
To be shaking.
머뭇거리다,
To hesitate.
반짝거리다,
To be shiny.
두리번거리다,
To look around.
끈적거리다,
To be sticky.
출렁거리다,
To be sloshing rocking. Some of these words have meaning without.
거리다,
Attached. Or can be used in another form. For example.
흔들다,
Means to shake swing wave. What meaning could
거리다,
have when a word ends in?
거리다,
It means that whatever is being done, it is being done repeatedly or continuously. For example.
흔들다,
To shake.
흔들거리다,
To be continually shaking. Note that you can't just add
거리다,
to every word to give it the meaning of being repeated. Only certain words can use this ending, so I don't recommend adding
거리다,
to random words if you haven't learned that it can specifically be used like that. In addition, some words only end in
거리다,
that is, other than their
거리다,
form. There is no other way that they can be used. For example.
머뭇거리다,
To continually hesitate.
두리번거리다,
To continually look around, while,
머뭇거리다,
and,
두리번거리다,
are words,
머뭇다,
and,
두리번다,
are not words. Below are some example sentences with words using.
거리다,
Note that there are other words that end in
거리다,
that are not included in the vocabulary list above. Most words using
거리다,
are quite difficult, and the purpose of this lesson is not to introduce you to every word where you can see.
거리다,
Rather, the purpose of this lesson is to introduce you to the general meaning feeling of,
거리다,
to allow you to understand its usage when you see it used on words during your studies. It is also important to note that all words ending in
거리다,
are verbs and therefore must be conjugated as such. Many of these words inherently feel like adjectives, so it is strange at first to consider them verbs. For example,
끈적거리다,
is a verb, but it typically translates to the adjective to be sticky in English.
우리는 흔들거리는 다리를 건넜어요.
We crossed the wobbly bridge, the bridge that keeps shaking, the shaky bridge.
남자가 여자와 얘기하는 것을 머뭇거렸어요.
The man kept hesitating to talk with the girl.
사고가 난 후에 차를 다시 운전하는 것을 머뭇거렸어요.
I, continually, hesitated about driving again after the accident.
반짝거리는 목걸이를 하고 있었어요.
She was wearing a shiny sparkly necklace.
별이 밤의 하늘에서 반짝거려요.
The stars shine sparkle in the sky at night.
열쇠를 찾으려고 방을 두리번거렸어요.
I looked around the room to find my keys.
땀이 나고 나서 몸이 아주 끈적거려요.
After sweating, my body is all sticky.
바다에서 물이 출렁거렸어요.
The water rocked back and forth in the ocean. It is common to see words with
거리다.
used in literature where the author wants to describe a certain feeling through language. For example, the sentence immediately above could be translated to the water rocked back and forth. However, it could also be translated to the water sloshed back and forth in the ocean. The word slosh gives me a more descriptive feeling and image of the water. In Korean, these
거리다.
words often give sentences a more descriptive feeling and image. Full stop.
자기 and 자신.
When referring to somebody in the third person, you can use words like he, she, or that person. For example,
그는 한국을 좋아해요.
he likes Korea.
그녀는 한국을 좋아해요.
She likes Korea.
그 사람은 한국을 좋아해요.
That person likes Korea.
자기.
Is usually used in sentences when a person has already been mentioned, and is being mentioned again. For example, in the sentence, he likes his appearance, you could write that sentence like this.
그는 그의 외모를 좋아해요.
However, it could also be written like this.
그는 자기의 외모를 좋아해요.
He likes his appearance. Here, you can use
자기.
to replace the person you are talking about the second time you mention that person. Below are many more examples. I have bolded the word
자기.
and its translation to make it clear what
자기.
translates to.
우리 아들은 자기의 일을 항상 혼자 하고 싶어요.
Our son always wants to do his work alone.
저의 아내는 자기가 요리한 것을 보통 안 먹어요.
My wife usually doesn't eat the food she cooks.
우리 아들은 자기 건강에 대해 의사와 상담을 했어요.
Our son consulted with a doctor about his health.
여자가 변한 자기 모습을 보고 실망했어요.
The girl looked at her changed appearance and was disappointed, in the example sentences above using
자기.
some person is being referred to twice in the same sentence. Although this person is mentioned twice, the person is not the subject and the object of the sentence. For example,
우리 아들은 자기의 일을 항상 혼자 하고 싶어요.
the subject is our son, the object is his work.
저의 아내는 자기가 요리한 것을 보통 안 먹어요.
The subject is my wife, the object is the food she cooks. When one person is both the subject and the object of a sentence, the word
자신.
is used as the object. The translation of
자신.
to English depends on who the person is, but the basic form you will see is oneself. Depending on the person, the translation would be myself, yourself, himself, yourself, themselves. For example,
저는 자신을 안 믿어요.
I don't trust myself.
너는 자신을 안 믿어.
You don't trust yourself?
그는 자신을 안 믿어요.
He doesn't trust himself.
그녀는 자신을 안 믿어요.
She doesn't trust herself.
그들은 자신을 안 믿어요.
They don't trust themselves. It is common to place the following words before.
자신, 나, 내, 저, 제.
If the subject is I.
너, 내.
If the subject is you.
그, 그녀, 자기.
If the subject is him or her.
그들.
If the subject is a. For example,
저는 제 자신을 안 믿어요.
I don't trust myself.
너는 내 자신을 안 믿어.
You don't trust yourself?
그는 자기 자신을 안 믿어요.
He doesn't trust himself.
그녀는 자기 자신을 안 믿어요.
She doesn't trust herself.
그들은 그들 자신을 안 믿어요.
They don't trust themselves. We also see these translations when the person is the subject and also placed before
에 대해.
or
에게.
in a sentence. For example,
자신에 대해.
about oneself,
자신에게.
to oneself. Below are many examples showing the use of
자신. 청소년들은 그들 자신을 사랑하지 않아요.
young people don't love themselves.
그 학생은 자기 자신에게 자꾸 변명을 해요.
That student always makes excuses for himself.
저도 제 자신을 몰라요.
Even I don't know myself.
저는 제 자신에게 그런 말을 많이 했어요.
I said that type of thing to myself many times.
그 남자가 수업 시간 동안 자기 자신에게 말을 해요.
That boy talks to himself during class.
저는 한국에서 제 자신에 대해 많이 배웠어요.
I learned a lot about myself in Korea.
그는 자기 자신에 대해 아무것도 알고 있지 않아요.
He doesn't know anything about himself, still.
아직,
When used in the present tense,
아직.
translates to still. For example,
저는 아직 기다리고 있어요.
I am still waiting.
학생들은 그 선생님을 아직 좋아해요.
Do students still like that teacher?
불이 아직 켜져 있어요.
The light is still on.
그 상가가 그 길에 아직 있어요.
That building is still on that street.
저는 주름이 아직 많아요.
I still have a lot of wrinkles.
저는 한국에 아직 간 적이 없어요.
I still haven't been to Korea. When used in the past tense, it is typically used in negative sentences to indicate that something still hasn't happened. For example,
보증 기간이 아직 안 지났어요.
the warranty period still hasn't passed.
수표를 아직 안 받았어요.
I still haven't received the check.
우리는 그 문제를 아직 해결하지 못했어요.
We still haven't resolved that problem.
새로운 휴대폰을 아직 안 샀어요.
I still haven't bought a new phone.
우리는 4번 출구를 아직 찾지 못했어요.
We still haven't found exit 4. When used like this, the word yet can also be used in the translation. For example,
보증 기간이 아직 안 지났어요.
the warranty period hasn't passed yet.
수표를 아직 안 받았어요.
I haven't received the check yet.
우리는 그 문제를 아직 해결하지 못했어요.
We haven't resolved that problem yet.
새로운 휴대폰을 아직 안 샀어요.
I haven't bought a new phone yet.
우리는 4번 출구를 아직 찾지 못했어요.
We haven't found exit 4 yet. If somebody asks you if you have done something, you can respond with,
아직 안 했어요.
for example, person 1.
일을 다 했어요.
Have you done all the work yet? Person 2.
아직 안 했어요.
I haven't done it yet. I still haven't done it. In these cases, it is common to simplify the sentence and just use
아직,
as the answer.
요,
Can be added in formal situations. For example, person 1.
일을 다 했어요.
Have you done all the work yet? Person 2.
아직요,
Not yet, comma, above. Notice how only
아직,
is being used, which translates to yet, and how the English translation includes both yet and not. This difference often causes Korean people to make mistakes when saying this type of sentence in English. For example, a conversation with a Korean person, in English, might go like this. English speaker, did you do the work yet? Korean speaker, yet, comma, particles,
to,
and,
은,
can be attached to.
아직,
To create a more complex meaning of the word still, the word
여전히,
also translates to still. The following can be very confusing.
아직도, 스틸 아직은, 스틸 여전히, 스틸,
I'll explain the subtle nuances between each one.
아직도,
Is used when you are emphasizing that something is still the case, but it shouldn't be. For example,
저는 운동을 아직도 하지 않았어요.
I still haven't exercised. Putting emphasis on still meaning that you still haven't exercised, but should have by now.
머리가 아직도 아파요.
My head still hurts. Putting emphasis on still meaning that your head still hurts, but shouldn't anymore.
아직은,
Is used when you are saying that something hasn't happened yet, but it will happen soon or vice versa. Here, the comparison function of
은,
is used to compare the present, where something has or hasn't happened, with the future, where the opposite will happen. For example,
저는 운동을 아직은 하지 않았어요.
I still haven't exercised, indicating that I haven't exercised, but I will exercise shortly.
저는 아직은 공부를 하고 있어요.
I am still studying, indicating that I am studying, but I will finish, and therefore won't be studying, shortly.
여전히,
Is used when the action that is still being done still hasn't been done will continue into the foreseeable future. For example,
저는 운동을 여전히 하지 않았어요.
I still haven't exercised, indicating that you haven't exercised, and you have no plans to exercise soon.
저는 그 여자를 여전히 좋아해요.
I still like that girl, indicating that you still like that girl, and will continue to like her. Honestly, this is more confusing than it needs to be. In most situations, simply using
아직,
is sufficient. However, if you ever wanted to be more specific, you could use
아직도, 아직은,
or.
여전히,
It helps if you understand the meanings of
to,
and
은,
on their own to extrapolate how they can be applied to
아직,
words that need negative endings. In lesson 25, you learned about using
아무도, 아무것도, 아무데도,
and.
아무 때도.
In that lesson, you learned that sentences containing those words should have a negative conjugation. For example, instead of saying
아무도 나를 좋아해 incorrect.
you would have to write
아무도 나를 좋아하지 않아.
or
아무도 나를 안 좋아해.
nobody likes me. There are a handful of other words that require this negative ending. I would like to introduce you to
별로,
and.
전혀 별로,
And.
전혀,
Both have very similar meanings, but
전혀,
is more extreme.
별로,
Has the meaning of really or that in these types of sentences. I'm not really that hungry. I don't really want to go. He's not that handsome. To say those sentences in Korean, you can use
별로,
as an adverb within the sentence, and then finish the sentence with a negative conjugation. For example,
나는 별로 배고프지 않아.
I'm not really hungry.
나는 밖에 별로 나가고 싶지 않아.
I don't really want to go outside.
그는 별로 잘생기지 않았다.
He's not that handsome. You should know by now that
이다.
usually does not attach to adverbs.
별로,
Is an exception, as it is very common for Korean people to use this construction to describe their indifference towards something. The most common way you would hear this is in response to a question. For example, A.
밥은 맛있어.
Is the food delicious? B.
별로야.
Mel. Not really. A.
이 바지는 마음에 들어.
Do you like these pants? B.
별로야.
Mel. Not really. If it is being used in a formal setting, it is more common to just attach
요.
to it. A.
홍콩에 가고 싶어요.
Do you want to go to Hong Kong? B.
별로요.
Mel. Not really. It can also be used in the past tense. In these cases, the past tense conjugation of
이다.
is used for both formal and informal situations. For example, A.
점심을 먹었어요? 어땠어요?
Did you have lunch? How was it? B.
별로였어요.
Mel. It wasn't that good. A.
그 남자를 만났어? 잘생겼어.
Did you meet that man? Was he handsome? B.
아니, 별로였어.
Now, not really. It can also be used immediately after a noun, almost as if it were an adjective. This allows it to be used by a speaker even if there was not a soliciting question. For example,
우리가 먹었던 피자가 별로였어.
the pizza we ate wasn't that good. This sentence is essentially the same as
우리가 먹었던 피자가 별로 맛있지 않았어.
the pizza we ate wasn't that delicious, or the only difference is that using
별로이다.
in these cases is very colloquial and more common in speech.
전혀,
Has a similar meaning, but it is more extreme.
전혀,
Has the meaning of at all in the following sentences. I'm not hungry at all. I don't want to go outside at all. He's not handsome at all. For example,
나는 전혀 배고프지 않아.
I'm not hungry at all.
나는 밖에 전혀 나가고 싶지 않아.
I don't want to go outside at all.
그는 전혀 잘생기지 않았다.
He's not handsome at all. Another way to express a similar meaning to
전혀,
is to attach
to, 하나,
like,
별로,
and.
전혀,
This is commonly used in negative sentences. Technically, this would translate to something like not even one. For example,
저는 친구가 하나도 없어요.
I don't even have one friend.
저는 사진을 하나도 안 찍었어요.
I didn't even take one picture.
그 할아버지는 주름이 하나도 없어요.
That grandfather doesn't even have one wrinkle. However, even though the word
하나,
is used, it can be used even in situations where nothing is countable. In this case, it is better translated to something like not at all like.
전혀,
For example,
저는 밥을 하나도 안 먹었어요.
I didn't eat at all.
학교가 하나도 재미없어요.
School isn't fun at all.
그 여자가 하나도 안 웃었어요.
That girl didn't laugh at all.
훨씬,
Much more
훨씬,
can be used in sentences just like,
더,
which you learned about in lesson 19, but the meaning is stronger than.
더.
For example,
나는 나의 남동생보다 훨씬 똑똑해.
I am way much smarter than my brother.
한국어는 영어보다 훨씬 어렵다.
Korean is much more difficult than English. You can also put
더,
in the sentence after,
훨씬.
with no difference in meaning.
나는 나의 남동생보다 훨씬 더 똑똑해.
I am way much smarter than my brother.
한국어는 영어보다 훨씬 더 어렵다.
Korean is much more difficult than English.
관하다 and 관련하다.
You learned how to use.
에 대하다.
In lesson 13, the typical translation for
에 대하다.
is about. For example,
나는 너에 대해 생각했어.
I thought about you.
나는 한국 역사에 대한 영화를 봤어.
I saw a movie about Korean history. You can use
에 관하다.
instead of.
에 대하다.
For example,
나는 한국 역사에 대한 영화를 봤어.
I saw a movie about Korean history. And
나는 한국 역사에 관한 영화를 봤어.
I saw a movie about Korean history.
관하다.
Indicates some form of relation. A literal translation would be to have relation with. Therefore, the sentence above could also be translated to
나는 한국 역사에 대한 영화를 봤어.
I saw a movie about Korean history. And
나는 한국 역사에 관한 영화를 봤어.
I saw a movie related to Korean history. Although
관하다.
and
대하다.
can be used to create a similar meaning in some situations, it is awkward to use
관하다.
when thinking about something somebody. For example, the following sentence
나는 너에 관해 많이 생각했어.
would be better off said as
나는 너에 대해 생각했어.
I thought about you. A word that is similar in form is.
에 관련하다.
It is often used in the same way as
에 대하다.
and.
에 관하다.
Notice the difference in meanings.
환경에 대해.
About the environment.
환경에 대한 것.
A thing about the environment.
환경에 관해.
About regarding the environment.
환경에 관한 것.
A thing about regarding the environment.
환경에 관련해.
About regarding the environment.
환경에 관련한 것.
A thing about regarding the environment.
관련한.
Is also often used as
관련돼.
and.
관련된 내 관련해.
Is usually written spoken as
관련하여.
or.
관련되어.
Remember that
해.
is actually the shortened form of
하여.
and is much more common in some formal situations, instructions, and signs you might find.
하여.
Used more often than.
해.
But other than that,
하여.
is less commonly used. However,
관련하여.
is quite common. Some examples.
환경에 관련된 영화가 많아요. 환경에 관련한 영화가 많아요. 환경에 관한 영화가 많아요.
There are a lot of movies relating to the environment.
이 문제에 관련되어 회의가 있을 것이다. 이 문제에 관련하여 회의가 있을 것이다. 이 문제에 관해 회의가 있을 것이다.
There will be a meeting relating to this problem.
태극기에 관련된 이야기를 했어요. 태극기에 관련한 이야기를 했어요. 태극기에 관한 이야기를 했어요.
We had a discussion relating to the Korean flag.
주위,
Around the circumference
주위.
is also a fairly simple word, but a little bit of explanation will probably help you understand it better. In lesson 2, you learned various words of position, like inside, outside, beside, etc. For example,
학교 앞에,
in front of the school,
학교 뒤에,
behind the school,
학교 안에,
inside the school. You can use
주위.
in the same way, but to mean around. For example,
나는 학교 주위를 걷는 것을 좋아해.
I like walking around the school.
다른 지구 주위를 돌아요.
The moon spins around the earth.
학생들이 넘어진 친구 주위에 서 있었어요.
The students stood around their friend who had fallen. It can also be used to refer to the general surroundings of a place. For example,
그가 주위를 두리번거렸어요.
He looked around at his surroundings.
주위가 안전하지 않아요.
This area surrounding area isn't safe. Finally, you will also see
주위.
used to refer to the people who one often comes in contact with. This is often translated to the people around a person, but not in a physical sense. Rather, it refers to one's friends, family, coworkers, etc. For example,
그는 주위 사람들을 안 믿어요.
he doesn't trust those around him.
주위 사람 중에 그를 좋아하는 사람은 하나도 없어요.
There isn't even one person around him that likes him.
일단, once.
Throughout your studies, you will learn a variety of adverbs that can be placed in sentences that have no real meaning. The purpose they serve is more to add feeling to a sentence rather than to change the meaning in any drastic way. This is hard to describe in English because, to my knowledge, we don't have anything similar. The most common of these words is
만약.
which you have yet to learn about at this point. You will learn about it in Lesson 43. The purpose of these words or the feeling that they give off is to allow the listener-reader to expect the type of sentence that is about to be said. For example, when somebody says,
일단.
one can expect that the speaker will be mentioning that one action will happen before another. You will usually see the translation of once for.
일단.
Although it is hard to correctly decide on a translation for a word whose meaning is more about feeling, in Lesson 24 you learned about how to use
는 후에.
to say sentences like this.
제가 밥을 먹은 후에 밖에 나갈 거예요.
After I eat, I will go outside. In this sentence, one action, eating, happens before another, going outside. You can use
일단.
in sentences like this. For example,
일단 제가 밥을 먹은 후에 밖에 나갈 거예요.
once I eat, I will go outside. Notice that the two sentences essentially have the same meaning. The only reason I translated them differently is to try to account for the fact that
일단.
was used in the second example. Other examples.
일단 일을 다 한 후에 아빠에게 전화할 거예요.
Once I do all the work, I will call my dad.
일단 재료를 산 후에 샐러드를 만들 거예요.
Once I buy the ingredients, I will make a salad.
일단 한국어를 배운 후에 중국어를 배우고 싶어요.
Once I learn Korean, I want to learn Chinese. The word
이상.
is often used in sentences with
일단.
similar to how
후에.
is used. You learned about
후에.
in Lesson 24. For example,
밥을 먹은 후에 친구를 만났어요.
after I ate I met a friend.
밥을 먹은 후에 친구를 만날 거예요.
After I eat, I will meet a friend.
이상.
Is similar to
후에.
but when
이상.
is used, the speaker is specifically indicating that the clause prior to
이상.
has already completed and will now complete the clause after.
이상.
The translation of now that one has is usually appropriate. For example,
일단 제가 시작한 이상 멈추지 않을 거예요.
now that I've started, I won't stop.
일단 일을 다 한 이상 아빠에게 전화할 거예요.
Now that I'm done all my work, I will call my dad.
일단 재료를 산 이상 샐러드를 만들 거예요.
Now that I have bought all the ingredients, I will make a salad.
일단 한국어를 배운 이상 중국어를 배우고 싶어요.
Now that I have learned Korean, I want to learn Chinese. In addition to this, you will often see
일단.
placed at the beginning of a sentence that has the particle
부터.
attached to the object in the clause that happens first, followed by a verb with
고.
attached. For example,
일단 밥부터 먹고.
you learned about the particle
부터.
in Lesson 12. Although the translation
부터.
is slightly different, the usage shown above is essentially the same as the usage introduced in that earlier lesson, when added to a noun like this, as in the example above, preceded by
일단.
one is indicating that one action should happen before another action. The construction above, which is not a complete sentence yet, means that the speaker wants to eat first, and then, after finishing eating, another action can take place. For example,
나는 일단 밥부터 먹고 나갈 거야.
again, This sentence implies that the speaker wants to eat, and then after finishing eating, wants to go outside. This sentence could translate to many different things in English.
나는 일단 밥부터 먹고 나갈 거야.
I will eat first, and then go outside.
나는 일단 밥부터 먹고 나갈 거야.
I will start from eating, and then go outside.
나는 일단 밥부터 먹고 나갈 거야.
After I eat, I will go outside.
나는 일단 밥부터 먹고 나갈 거야.
Once I am finished eating, I will go outside. Notice that it doesn't matter what you translate the sentence to. In the end, the result is the same in each translation, and the purpose of
일단,
is merely there to give feeling to the sentence. More examples.
일단 숙제를 끝내고 친구를 만날 거예요.
Once I finish my homework, I will meet a friend.
일단 피자부터 먹고 과자를 먹을 거예요.
Once I finish eating the pizza, I will eat candy snacks.
일단 빵에 땅콩 버터부터 바르고 딸기를 놓을 거예요.
Once I spread peanut butter on the bread, I will put strawberries onto it.
일단 한국어부터 배우고 중국어를 배우고 싶어요.
Once I learn Korean, I want to learn Chinese. Weight words. There are a lot of words that relate to weight, body weight that aren't very easy to understand. I want to take some time to explain these words to you. The word for weight is
무게,
You already know that the word for body is
몸,
If you are talking about one's body weight, you can say
몸무게.
Korea, like most of the world, uses a metric system. People probably wouldn't understand if you expressed your weight using pounds. The first way to indicate how much you weigh is like this.
나는 몸무게가 70kg야.
I weigh 70 kilograms. kg is pronounced as
킬로,
or.
킬로그램,
In Korean, you are more likely to see kg written instead of
킬로,
or.
킬로그램.
It is also possible to use
나가다.
as the predicating word of the sentence. For example,
나는 몸무게가 70.
kg.
나가.
I weigh 70 kilograms. In both situations,
몸무게.
can be omitted from the sentence as the context makes it clear that the speaker is referring to his/her weight. The sentences above could be shortened to
나는 70kg야.
I weigh 70 kilograms.
나는 70.
kg.
나가.
I weigh 70 kilograms. If you want to ask how much somebody weighs, you can turn those two sentences into questions using
몇,
which you learned about in lesson 22. For example, left parenthesis.
몸무게가 몇 kg야.
How much do you weigh?
몸무게가 몇,
kg.
나가.
How much do you weigh? When talking about weight, it is common to talk about losing or gaining weight. When doing this, the word
살,
is typically used instead of.
몸무게, 살.
Literally refers to one's soft tissues, like muscle, fat or flesh, and can also be applied to meat flesh of other animals. For example,
그 물고기에 살이 없어요.
there is no meat on that fish. Weight is typically lost and gained in soft tissue, so
살,
is used instead of.
몸무게,
Common verbs you will hear with
살,
are
살이 찌다.
to gain weight,
살이 빠지다.
to lose weight, typically used when weight is lost inadvertently.
살을 빼다.
To lose weight, typically used when weight is lost on purpose. These verbs have other uses than these situations related to weight. For example,
빠지다.
is a verb used when something falls, sinks, drops or is deflated.
떼다.
Is a verb used when somebody removes something from somewhere, as in, to remove weight from one's body.
찌다.
Doesn't have much use outside of this situation.
찌다.
And
빠지다.
are passive verbs, so they cannot act on objects. In practice, all this means is that you cannot put
을을.
in a sentence clause that ends in.
찌다 빠지다.
The best way to use these words in situations of gaining and losing weight is
나는 작년에 살이 많이 쪘어.
I gained a lot of weight last year.
나는 살이 많이 빠졌어.
I lost a lot of weight.
떼다.
Is an active verb, and therefore can act on an object. For example,
저는 살을 빼고 싶어요.
I want to lose weight. This lesson was a little bit different than our usual lessons, but I felt that before going any further, you needed to know how to use these important words in Korean. In the next lesson, we will go back to our usual format of teaching you a lot of Korean grammar. In the meantime, make sure you are comfortable with what was taught in this lesson. For more info, please visit howtostudykorean.com.